we think in terms of what the institutional management theorists like to call bounded rationality, right? The idea that yes, we want to be as rational as we can, but there are limits on how rational we can be. And if we make too many assumptions about being rational and we fail to take into account the non-rational dimensions of what we're doing, we're going to get in trouble, right? There's been an emphasis here on consensus, or what sociologists like to call the sociology of regulation, right? Instead of the idea that conflict is not necessarily a bad thing. And there were some comments yesterday to this effect, that conflict can be useful because it brings up suppressed or repressed values. It allows people to express their concerns, make their interests known, get that into play so that we can come to a more inclusive and encompassing decision, right? And finally, to me, there seems to have been what Hans-Georg Gadamer calls a hermeneutics of trust at play in a lot of this discourse, that we trust the system, we trust ourselves, that yeah, we're imperfect, we're muddling through, but we'll get there, you know, and we'll probably avoid catastrophes, and we'll probably be okay in the end. We're working very hard toward that goal. Well, Gadamer suggests an alternative. I'm not sure he advocates for the alternative, but he presents these two alternatives. A more critical, skeptical approach to what we're doing, which he calls the hermeneutics of suspicion. And I think it behooves us to be fairly skeptical of the possibilities and prospects and potentialities that exist out there in the nano domain. Okay, so final slide. What can we do then if you buy any of this commentary? Well, can we find ways to institutionalize reflection? And Pat, something you said makes me rethink that. You know, you challenged the idea of institutionalization, I believe. But here's where I was when I made up the slide anyway. How can we build into the process the kind of deeper reflection that I'm trying to call for here? How can we make that a very large part of how we do business as a society? And one way we can do that is by, this is a little joke here, institutionalizing uninstitutionalized reflection. What I mean by that is let those other voices in, those non-mainstream voices, those dissenting voices, those diversity voices, those multicultural perspectives, find ways to get that into the system, cultural rationalities, and incorporate them more fully, right? Can we do a better job of imagining the problems that might be out there? Science fiction's pretty good for this, right? I think of the character in the Dune series who could see the future, but the problem was he saw a bunch of possible futures, and he knew no more than anybody else which one of those futures would play out, right? But what can we do to get on the table a wide range of possibilities for where these technologies could take us, right? I think not only science has a role in doing that kind of technology assessment or forecasting, but art, literature, performance, theater, and dissenting voices play a role in getting those possibilities out on the table for our consideration, right? And I would suggest that we need to think of being more precautionary as, in fact, a form of progress. Precaution is not contradictory to progress, but in fact, precaution, to be more precautionary and to be safer, right, and to make better choices is itself a form of progress. So perhaps if we try to address some of these goals, we can sort of revision the rhetoric of how we talk about risk and build what I'm suggesting we could call a rhetoric of reflection. So those are my comments.